To understand why the robot is registering a bunch of false positives or is seeing walls that don't exist, we got to remember how the sense function works. And to do that, we're going to have to kind of walk through this process as though we're the robot. So let's assume that our robot's driving forward, or driving north, I guess, and I'll put a little black dot every time the sense function runs. And so we see a lot of black dots really close together. They would actually be much closer together than what I'm drawing here, because that sense function only takes a few milliseconds to run. So it's constantly gathering tons of data all the time. And we also have to remember that that sense function averages the most recent value. So it's not just this value that we're looking at, it's a handful of the most recent ones that it averages together. And the issue then is when it finally gets close enough to, let's say, right now, let's suppose that this is close enough to this wall that the robot starts reading higher values that would indicate that a wall exists. We get one positive reading that's averaged with these previous negative readings, these previous lower readings. And so these lower readings actually pull the average down so that this one high reading is outweighed, and the robot doesn't realize that a wall really exists here. But then we get another high reading, and another high reading, and another high reading, and finally the robot has enough high readings in its array that is used to create this average that it realizes, hey, there really is a wall here, and I need to stop and do something. So then this robot, it turns, and we have it at this point in time programmed to turn left. So it starts heading this way. I'll make a better arrow here. It starts heading left, and the very first reading it makes is a low reading because there's nothing over it. There's no wall in front of it here. So it says, hey, there's no wall. I should go forward. But the problem is that this one black reading, this one low reading, is averaged with a couple high readings over here. And these actually outweigh that low reading more frequently than we would like, causing our robot to see walls that don't exist. And so the issue is, the problem that we have to fix is every time our robot turns, we need to take a series of readings so that, let me just draw a giant dot, a series of readings that would be represented by this big dot, so that the weight of this group of readings outweighs all of these readings, or actually pushes these readings out of the array that's used to average the value that's eventually used by our state machine to determine whether or not a wall exists. So how do we get a bunch of readings every time our robot turns, and we don't want the current reading to be affected by previous readings over here? So just to recap, every time our robot turns, here, here, and here, we need the array within the sensors class to be flooded with new values that are pertinent to this robot's new heading. And so we're going to go to the very end of the sensors class, and we're going to write a very simple function. This function is going to be called void initialize. And what this function is going to do is it's going to run a loop. I'll call it a byte here. Byte I equals 0. So we're creating a variable called I. We're starting it out at 0. We're saying while I is less than, and then the number of readings that I take and average together in order to come up with a number that we use to make decisions. This will completely push out any previous readings that don't belong to the robot's new orientation. And then I'm going to increment this value by 1. So we're going to move through this for loop. In this instance, the number of readings is 20. So we're going to move through the for loop 20 times. And all we're going to do is just run the sense function. That's it. And it will automatically come up with new values. I'm going to hit Control T to get my white space all pretty. So I've created this function that basically floods the array that's used to create an average. And now I need to actually use that function. So after I turn, I'm going to say sensors.initialize. Got to do that here. Here, initialize. And here. Now, if I run my robot, it should behave much more consistently, and I shouldn't see it detecting walls that don't exist. It should only turn when there really is a wall in front of it. Go ahead and upload your code to your robot and make sure that it is behaving as expected.